Hey guys, it's Dan. This is going to be the second of my sponsored videos from Wargames Atlantic. This box was sent to me along with the Gangs of Rome box by Wargames Atlantic to review. So thank you once again to them for sending this to me. What we're looking at is the newly released British Expeditionary Force box that was, if not the first, one of the first boxes that was created as part of their Vox Populi system. And it's a polling system that they use to try to gauge community interest in upcoming sets. And it's similar to what a company called Wargames Factory, which was absorbed by Warlord Games years ago, used to do. They would do polls to kind of figure out what the community wanted. But Wargames Atlantic does a better job, I think, of kind of making people put their money where their mouth is, right? So the system, there's polls involved to try to narrow the sets down to a short list. And then from there, the community can purchase gift vouchers in various denominations, and each dollar of those gift vouchers is a vote. So you can put votes toward sets to try to suggest if that's the one that you want to have created, and then of course those gift vouchers can still be used to purchase product like normal. So I think it's a stronger way to figure out market demand for something when you have people that are actually putting up money for a thing. This is the British Expeditionary Force. This is World War II. They also have a British infantry set that's been out for World War I. And this is part of their World of Blaze line. This is actually the first one I think that I've seen where there's like a subtitle to it, which makes sense because, you know, World of Blaze on its own could refer to a lot of different conflicts, right? It could be dystopian future, Napoleonics, World War I. So it makes sense that this one actually has a subtitle to it. Again, with box art, we're used to this now where there's a nice illustration over on the left-hand side, kind of two figures in an action pose. And we have, unlike what we saw in the Age of Chivalry box, which was photoshopped images, we have miniatures that are in like a scene, a battlefield. This is better than the Goblin set that we looked at, just because you can much more easily see the miniatures that are involved here. They're all very well painted. And I think that's a nice evocative image. Same thing on the back. So flipping it over here, we have, again, it's interesting how from a layout standpoint, their box art is different set to set, range to range, where even though we have this image on the back repeated from the front, again, two more action pictures down here showcasing some models. So as we open it up here, again, 30 multi-part miniatures in this, no bases, as we've seen with all of our Wargames Atlantic sets. And I'll continue to repeat that not only can you source your own bases online, but Wargames Atlantic actually sells bases. So you can get the specific base that you want for whatever system it is you're going to use these for. Like all the sets we've seen so far. So again, 30 models, 6 models per sprue, 5 sprues, and they all repeat. So there's no command sprue or anything like that. So as we've been doing, we'll put all these aside and we'll isolate one of these. So this is the back, and then this is going to be the front. So we'll do an overview here, and you can, again, just to take a glance at this here, as we saw with the Age of Chivalry set, another of their more recent sets, it is overloaded with bits, which I love to see. I love to see tons and tons of options on multi-part plastic sets. I think that's one of the greatest strengths of multi-part plastic versus resin or metal, but even again comparing to 3D printing, if you're going to do a multi-part plastic set, you might as well do lots of options because that's what the people want. So we'll do just a quick overview here as we've been doing. And so this set is designed to either build British infantry in Europe, the British Expeditionary Force, or Home Guard troops, because they were all kind of similarly equipped. You'd have different weapons issued to different groups at different points in the war. They should also, I should note, they also have a Commando SAS box that they put out that covers the same time period. And those bits are all interchangeable with this one. And yeah, just from a glance, the very first thought I had was that from looking at the Commando sprue, that you could very easily kit bash like the Commando sprue with this one to make British paratroopers, for example. Just using some of the heads from that kit, some of the weapons from that kit in order to kit bash some paratroopers specifically. So in terms of contents, let's drill down into some specifics here. Again, as I keep talking about, and I really can't, I can't overemphasize just how clean these molds are. because I've put together a lot of multi-part plastic sets from, I think I counted actually about a week ago. I went through and just did an inventory of all the sets from different manufacturers that I've done, and I think I've put together sets from 14 different manufacturers, not counting Games Workshop. So what I, again, can overemphasize is just how clean these sculpts are. That, again, you don't see flash or mold lines, or if there is any, it's so light that, I mean, you could just take the side of your X-Acto knife and scrape it off. So I don't know, again, what it is that they're doing differently, because it seems to be semi-unique to Wargames Atlantic that there's just no flash. And I don't know if it's in part because of the depth of these tabs that are on the sprue. I don't know, but they do a great job consistently. So in terms of body options, so you've got 6 bodies, again, 6 per sprue. 2 of them are in non-standing poses, and that might be, again, from a layout standpoint, might be my only real criticism of this set, is that, so one of them is in a crouching pose, which is fine enough, but one of them is in a laying down pose. You can see it's this guy right here. And it makes sense to include that. I've seen other manufacturers handle poses like that a little bit differently. Like Fireforge, for example, has a recently released samurai kit, and it's 6 models per sprue. They have the torsos and the legs detached, like we've seen from some other Wargames Atlantic kits. But the crouched legs are optional. There's 6 torsos and 7 sets of legs, one of which is crouching. So you can use the crouching model if you want, or you could have 6 standing models. So that would be maybe my only criticism from a pose standpoint, is that out of 30 models, you're gonna have 5 that are laying down. But again, for the price point, I think it's reasonable enough. It's just something to be aware of. From a sculpting standpoint, they all look really, really good. You can see you've got quite a bit of equipment already sculpted onto the bodies in terms of ammo pouches, kind of the belts. I think it was called Pattern Web equipment, if I'm not mistaken, the kind of the series of pouches and I don't know, belts designed for carrying things on campaign. But you can see it's all sculpted on, and it's all very well done. Now, in terms of heads, you see we have a lot. I went through, and again, I did an inventory for this set just because of the sheer volume of bits. I counted 17 heads per sprue on this set as well, and they break up. So the kind of standard Mark II helmets are up here. I think they were called Brodies. You got them up here, so there's 6, and not only, again, the face details are really, really good here, but what I really like is that the one thing that I saw on, I guess it was the Halfling set that they produced, where they had like kettle style helmets on the Halflings. They're all clean shaven faces, so all like the faces all looked kind of similar, but the helmets were also all on straight. And so what it meant was that kind of at a glance you had like 3 heads in that set that all looked almost identical. There were slight variations to them, but it looks like what they've done here is you can see some of the helmets are kind of off kilter, which I like, because what it means is that even though you've got a lot of young, clean-shaven faces here, it creates some variety in the heads just from those 6 right there. You also have 3 over here that have some kind of covering on top. I think it's the same style of helmet. It's just got either netting or a cover on top. And then you have 3 that have, I guess you call them bonnets, kind of in a Scottish style here. 2 officers' heads. One has like he's shouting an order, and then one is a little more serious looking. And 3, I guess I'd call them field caps over here. So 17 total heads. Again, really, it's probably some of the best faces I think that we've seen from Wargames Atlantic in this set. Again, just taking another quick close-up view here. So lots of variety there, and as I will probably keep saying, that it can be combined with their SAS set to add even more variety in terms of heads and faces. Now, what really interested me, and I should note, this is, I tend to buy a lot of like medieval, Dark Age, Ancients sets, and this is the most modern set that I've been in possession of probably, I don't know, in like 10 years. I played a little bit of bolt action, you know, a decade ago. But what I really like about sets like this are weapon options, because it's just cool. That's I guess the teenage boy in me, that we all like looking at guns. So lots of weapon options in this particular kit. So let's kind of go through them together. So we've got 6, I guess you'd call them Enfield rifles, Enfield rifles, just your standard Mark 1. I guess they could be Mark 3, but Mark 1 got reissued later in the war. But these are the shorter barreled variants. You've got 3 that are in just kind of normal firing poses or at ready poses without bayonets. You've got 2 here that have bayonets, and then you've got 1 that is over the shoulder. They're just standard Enfield rifles. And then, curiously to me, I actually had to look up what the difference was here, that there are 2 here that look like Enfield rifles. However, from what research I could do, these 2 appear to be either P14 rifles, or they were M1917 Enfields, which were either of which would have been issued to the Home Guard instead of the BEF. And you can, again, tell from the slightly longer barrel here. And then the only difference between the 2, really, aesthetically, they look very similar, would have been that the M1917 was chambered with 30-06. But again, these 2 would have been for the Home Guard, and then these 6 would have been issued to the British Expeditionary Force. And the truth is, it's a war, so like you can talk about where things were issued, but in practice, all kinds of weapons were all over the place, especially by the mid to late war. So it's very reasonable to have any of these on any variant of troop that you're trying to create with this set. So from there, we got a couple other options. Again, those are your kind of standard rifle options. You've got Thompson down here, which has a drum magazine on it, so that's very cool. And I think these were actually pretty widely issued with the Home Guard and the BEF early war until the Sten gun got introduced. And I believe there's those weapon options on the SAS sprue, if that's something you're looking for. You got a BAR here, speaking of American weapons in British service. And there are 2 Bren guns right here. This one's in a firing position, this one's in an over-the-shoulder position. It's funny because of the way that it's posed. You can very clearly see it's a Bren when you flip it over this way. When I saw it like this, at first I thought it was like a Sturmgewehr, like a German STG-44, but it's not. It's obviously a Bren. When you flip it over like this, it's just over the shoulder. There's 1 Lewis gun right here, again in an over-the-shoulder kind of pose, and then there's 1 revolver, and that could be it could be an Enfield, it could be a Webley. I think they also had Smith & Wessons and Colts, but at this scale, it could be any of those. So 1 revolver per sprue as well. And then this piece, I was doing all kinds of research online to figure out what this was, and then the answer actually came from the box art, which is, I thought this was a Mark II mortar, and confirmed that this is a mortar. So this box actually has 5 mortars in it, if you're trying to build up some heavier weaponry. So tons of weapon options. Again, lots of kit bash potential with the SAS sprues. And as I mentioned in the last unboxing that I did, the real thing that excites me about Wargames Atlantic is the down the road add-on potential for being able to 3D print arms for, say, anti-tank weapons, heavier weaponry like bazookas, things like that, so that you could potentially 3D print some other weapon options to include within this set. So tons and tons of options in terms of both heads and weapons. And then you can see, in addition to having like ammo pouches sculpted onto a lot of the bodies here, there's a lot of accessories strewn about on the outsides of the sprue here, which I love to see. I love to see that kind of option within these sets. So you've got 4 bedrolls down here. You've got these pieces. Some of these are like, I don't know if this is like binoculars right here. There's like 1 of these, and then there's 6 of these kind of rounded pouches that are strewn about. on the outsides of the sprue. I think this, again, going back to pattern web equipment, I think either these are pouches or they go in conjunction with the entrenching tools that you see here. So, but there are 6 of these little like kind of rounded pouches. I count 4 entrenching tools down here, and then up here there are 6 canteens on the outside. You've got some other ammo pouch options. I think there's 4 of those. And then these pieces, you've got backpacks here, so 6 of them, so everybody are equipped with a backpack. And then these 5 are the front-mounted respirators that were issued. I don't know if they were still using them by the late war, but I know early war, everybody still had World War I chemical warfare in mind, so everybody was issued respirators. So that's the piece that you see hanging on the front there. And there's a couple cool smaller pieces here. There's a bipod, which could be used with the Bren guns. And then there is a coffee cup. I guess it would call it a teacup, but that sure looks like a coffee cup to me. So anyway, yeah, another kit that has just a tremendous amount of potential. It's very clean, excellent details, and just lots and lots and lots of options. So as with the last set that we looked at, I'm going to cut here and I'm going to put together a couple of these just so you can see how some of these pieces fit together and we can see what some of these finished models look like. So I mocked up a couple of these guys here, but I want to show you something real quick because it's kind of rare that I get pleasantly surprised with multi-part plastics these days, but Wargames Atlantic has managed to do it. So as I was snipping off some pieces here, I chose just a random arm, and I realized as I was putting it on the model that I then had this selection of left arms to match up with the rifle arm. And at first I was thinking, how on earth, without just, trial and erroring it, am I going to figure out what is what? And Wargames Atlantic has preemptively solved that problem. But you can see there's no instructions with the kit, but you don't need it because what they've done, it's a really simple numbering system where you've got R as your right arm with a number, and then that corresponds with L as your left arm with a number. So if I'm choosing this BAR bit, which is R10, and then I'm going to take L10 as the corresponding left arm piece, and that carries over with every single weapon arm. You can see R12B, that's a variant, but it means that L12 is going to be the arm that goes with it. So really well done. It's a simple system. Again, there's no need for instructions because they're really intuitive to put together once you understand that numbering system. And as a result, I just mocked up a handful of these guys, and you can see not only do they go together with no issues, but I think this might be one of their more detailed kits that I've seen, certainly compared to other options on the market. I think this blows them out of the water. This is really, really impressive. And you can see nice dynamic poses that come with it. And there's just something about tacking a bunch of field equipment onto a model that is, I don't know. I think maybe there's an element of that is why we all get into wargaming. So again, another fantastic kit from Wargames Atlantic. The detail and the clean sprues that we've come to expect from them. Again, maybe the only small demerit would be the one laying down pose. But again, I realized as I was building these that I compared it to Fireforge, but this is $35 for 30 models. The Fireforge box that I was comparing it to is $40 for 24. So that additional leg option that you get to have either a crouching or a standing samurai model, you pay for that, right? So that's just something to take into consideration here. Yep, again, another great set from Wargames Atlantic, and I've got some non-review content coming out. I've got a couple of painting tutorial type things that I got to do. I got another comparison video that I want to put out, and a couple other things in the works for you. So thanks for hanging out with me, guys, and until next time, happy gaming.